If you ever wonder when consumer culture began, you might think of a modern city with glowing billboards and people buying things they never knew they wanted. But the truth is more entertaining. Long before shopping malls and online carts, the ancient Romans had already perfected the art of wanting everything. The only difference was that their tastes were far more expensive. Instead of the next new gadget, they wanted silk that came from thousands of miles away. Instead of exotic coffee, they wanted pepper that crossed oceans. And they wanted it in such quantities that even their own writers began to panic. Our story begins in the 1st and 2nd centuries of the Common Era. Rome is at the height of its power. Its empire stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the edge of the Middle East. Its cities gleam with marble and mosaics. Its elites eat more in a single banquet than many families see in a week. And into this world of plenty steps Emperor Tiberius, a man who often complained more about fashion than politics. He looked around at senators wrapped in delicate Chinese silk and wondered aloud whether the empire had completely lost its mind. The cloth was so thin, he said, that a breeze could embarrass a senator faster than a political scandal. Later, Pliny the Elder continued the tradition by describing Roman taste for silk as nothing short of a national weakness. Silk from China was not the only item Romans could not resist. Wealthy citizens seasoned their meals with pepper from India. For them, pepper was not merely a spice. It was a sign that you had arrived in society. A rich Roman could sprinkle it on meat, vegetables, and even fruit. If you were really trying to impress your guests, you might add it to dessert. The result, judging by the recipes, was a taste that shocked newcomers and delighted the fashionable. Alongside silk and pepper came incense from Arabia. Roman religion depended on it. Temples burned it constantly, and so did households with a fondness for pleasant smells. Merchants carried ivory, gemstones, dyes, and fine cotton across the Indian Ocean toward Egypt, and from there to the heart of the empire. These goods arrived at Rome's ports like glittering trophies of a world connected by long and dangerous routes. Naturally, all these luxuries came at a price. Romans did not send wine or military equipment in exchange. They sent money, real money, silver coins, gold coins, in so many shipments that Roman writers began sounding like modern economists who warn that the country is spending more than it earns. Pliny grumbled that Rome was losing 100 million sesterces every year on imports from the East. His tone suggests that he believed Rome was practically throwing gold into the sea and hoping some spices floated back. To make matters stranger, some Romans began calling silk immoral, not because silk was produced in distant China, but because it revealed too much of the wearer's body. Imagine being told that your favorite outfit is not only too revealing, but also responsible for draining the national budget. It created the peculiar joke that Rome was going bankrupt in order to look slightly more glamorous and slightly less dressed. Yet underneath the humor lay a serious issue. Roman demand for foreign luxuries was immense. Roman supply of those luxuries was zero. The empire could conquer territories, build roads, and organize tax systems, but it could not grow pepper in Italy. It could not weave silk. It could not produce the incense that temples demanded. Rome did not make these goods, so Rome had to buy them. In economic terms, the empire faced a simple but uncomfortable problem. Its citizens were addicted to imports, and not just local imports. Their desires stretched across 3 continents. Chinese silk from far beyond the empire. Indian spices carried on monsoon winds. Arabian incense transported by caravans that crossed deserts. It was a global appetite long before anyone invented the word global. By the end of the 1st century of the Common Era, Roman leaders had begun to wonder whether the empire could sustain this kind of shopping habit. Their questions sounded remarkably modern. What happens when a wealthy society wants more than it produces? What happens when people spend freely on foreign goods without realizing how much gold slips away? In other words, how long can an empire keep buying the world without paying a price? That is the problem at the heart of our story. And as we will see next, the Romans did not try to stop their appetite. they did something far more interesting. They built a system to bring the world even closer. The Romans did not simply complain about their addiction. They built a system that made it easier to satisfy it. Economically speaking, this is similar to discovering that you are eating too many sweets, then deciding to open a bakery so you never run out of cake again. Rome's solution to overspending on foreign luxuries was not restraint. It was innovation. To understand this change, we must travel to the edge of the empire. In the 1st century of the Common Era, Egypt was the golden hinge that connected the Mediterranean to the vast world of the Indian Ocean. Here, on the dry and sun-scorched shores of the Red Sea, stood 2 remarkable ports. Their names were Berenike and Myos Hormos. They were not beautiful in the way Roman cities were beautiful. No marble columns or broad avenues. Instead, they were busy, practical, and filled with the sweat of workers loading amphorae and crates onto ships bound for lands many Romans had never heard of. The key to everything was a piece of knowledge far older than the Roman Empire itself. For generations, Greek and Egyptian sailors had known that the winds of the Indian Ocean did something curious. In one season, the winds blew strongly from the southwest toward India. In another, they blew back toward the Red Sea. These winds, called the monsoon winds, were as steady and reliable as the sunrise. Sailors had whispered about their usefulness, but large empires had never fully embraced them. Rome changed that. Once the empire controlled Egypt, it controlled these Red Sea ports. And once Roman merchants learned that the wind could push them quickly across the ocean instead of forcing them to creep along the coastline for months, the world suddenly became smaller. The voyage to India transformed from an exhausting crawl into a predictable journey. With the right season and a strong hull, a merchant could travel directly across the Arabian Sea, deliver goods, buy spices, and return with the next shift of winds. This was not the work of one brilliant navigator or a single moment of discovery. It was a system. Hundreds of people contributed. Shipbuilders reinforced vessels to handle open water. Port officials expanded docks and storage sheds. Caravan organizers arranged camel trains to move goods between the Nile Valley and the Red Sea. Administrators along the way established customs offices to collect taxes and inspect cargo. In short, Rome took a simple idea, that the wind can help you travel, and turned it into a commercial engine that linked continents. The impact was immediate. Sailing became faster and safer. Ships no longer had to hug dangerous coasts where pirates lurked behind every cape. Instead, they crossed the open sea with surprising confidence. For the first time in history, large-scale trade between the Mediterranean world and India became routine. Ancient writers claim that as many as 120 Roman ships sailed to India each year. Whether the number is exact hardly matters. What matters is that Rome created a traffic jam on the Indian Ocean. When these ships arrived in Indian ports such as Muziris and Barigazza, the local traders did not blink. They welcomed the Romans with pepper, pearls, ivory, and fine cotton. And they asked for payment in coin. Gold coins, preferably. Archaeologists today find Roman coins all over South India. They appear in temples, in hoards buried in fields, and even set into jewelry. It seems Indian rulers enjoyed wearing Roman currency as ornaments. There were so many coins that Roman administrators were genuinely puzzled. The East was wealthier because of Roman gold, while Rome itself seemed lighter each year. Back home, writers like Pliny the Elder complained with growing irritation that Rome was paying for pepper in gold by weight. He wondered whether a fashionable dinner was worth the cost of emptying the treasury. His complaints did not stop anyone. If anything, they spread the news that, somewhere far across the sea, fortunes could be made. Merchants listened. Financiers listened. And soon the ports of Egypt were buzzing with excitement. Warehouses doubled in size. Caravans multiplied. Customs posts filled with officials trying to keep track of goods arriving from every direction. The people of Egypt even wrote shopping lists on papyrus, instructing traders to bring back specific items from India. These lists read like ancient catalog orders. It was clear that Rome had turned the monsoon route into a well-organized commercial machine. One of the most astonishing truths about history is how easily great changes begin with small desires. A craving for silk, a taste for pepper, a fondness for incense. These do not sound like the sort of things that reshape continents. Yet in Rome's case, they did exactly that. When Roman merchants began sailing across the Indian Ocean, the ancient world experienced a transformation so wide and so deep that many historians now call it the first great wave of globalization. Suddenly, the world was linked in ways no earlier civilization had achieved. Roman Egypt sent its caravans across the desert to the ports of Berenike and Myos Hormos. There, Red Sea ships carried goods down the coast of Arabia. From Arabia, vessels caught the monsoon winds across the ocean to India. Traders moved onward to Southeast Asia, and through long chains of middlemen, the route even stretched indirectly to China. What began as a single shopping route became a vast web connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. The results showed up first in Roman kitchens. Pepper, once rare and exotic, became surprisingly common among the wealthy. Recipes from the period reveal that Romans sprinkled pepper on nearly everything. A guest at a fashionable dinner might find pepper on meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, and possibly the dessert too. It reached the point where some Romans joked that pepper had become a national addiction, one that required ships, ports, and a small mountain of gold to support. Silk became an even more powerful symbol. When a senator arrived at the forum shimmering like the surface of a lake, everyone noticed. Wearing silk announced that you were important, wealthy, and not afraid to spend your fortune on something delicate and nearly transparent. Roman moralists muttered that the Senate was losing its dignity. Roman tailors simply smiled and measured their next client. Arabian incense became another essential luxury. It fueled religious ceremonies in temples and filled private homes with sweet smoke. It took long camel caravans and careful navigation to bring this incense to Roman markets. Yet the demand only grew, and with it, the prosperity of those who supplied it. Indian textiles added even more variety. Cotton from India was light, colorful, and woven with skill. Roman clothing was never the same after it arrived. Meanwhile, ports such as Alexandria in Egypt transformed into global exchange points. In these harbors, African ivory met Indian pepper, Arabian incense mingled with Roman wine, and traders from 3 continents bargained beneath enormous warehouses. These places were not only markets, they were meeting points of cultures, languages, and ideas. The effects reached far beyond the Mediterranean. Regions across South India flourished as producers of spices, pearls, gems, and textiles. The Nabatean kingdom, with its capital at Petra, gained wealth from controlling caravan routes that fed into the Red Sea. Even communities deep in the Arabian Peninsula saw new prosperity from incense and trade taxes. Rome's demand reshaped entire local economies. Craftsmen, sailors, camel drivers, and merchants all felt the ripple of Roman spending. Over time, this expanding trade web created something new in world history. Goods, ideas, art styles, and even religions began to move across continents with greater ease. A Buddhist statue might travel westward. A Roman glass cup might find its way eastward. Diplomatic contact between Rome and China increased. Although only rarely, each empire knew the other existed. They even sent a few embassies. Yet they remained distant giants gazing across the map without ever truly meeting. The interesting part is that while the world grew richer from this connectivity, Rome's moralists grew louder. They complained that the empire was bleeding silver and gold. They insisted that luxury was corrupting society. They warned that no nation could afford to buy silk forever. Their voices echoed through the Senate. Yet Roman consumers continued buying pepper by the sack and silk by the bolt. It seems ancient shoppers were as difficult to stop as modern ones. Rome never did solve its love of luxury, but that love connected 3 continents, encouraged long-distance trade, and created economic links that would shape history for centuries. In the end, the empire found a simple solution to its craving for foreign goods. It built a global trade network to shop more efficiently. That may not have pleased Emperor Tiberius. It may not have pleased Pliny the Elder, but it changed the world in ways neither man could have imagined. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more moments from economic history, consider subscribing to the channel. New episodes are on the way.